Come on in and take a look. Welcome to the Westport Library's Wearable Books Exhibit. My name is Chris Timmons and I'm the exhibits curator at the library. This show was conceived of as the visual component for the library's first Saugatuck StoryFest, a big literary and writing festival that just happened all over Westport 2 weeks ago. This exhibit includes work from 23 artists from all over Connecticut and also from Westchester County. And only 2 of those artists regularly work with books. The rest are painters, fiber artists, mixed media artists, photographers who stepped out of their comfort zone to take up the challenge of making a garment or accessory from 1 or more books. Before we take a closer look at the work in the exhibit, I want to clarify that all the work you see in this exhibit is in fact part of a mixed media art form called altered books. You can alter a book by painting or drawing on its pages. You can cut up the book or its pages to form sculptural piece. You can collage on the book. You can do anything you want to a book to alter it. So there you go. Let's take a closer look at the pieces in the exhibit. So let's start on the right side of the room with a wonderful dress by Westport painter Wendy Piper. She'll be here in a few minutes to talk with us about it. On the table at the far corner is a wonderful knitted hat of yarn spun with book page strips by Trumbull artist Molly Keller and Middletown artist Dana Mankowski. Next to that is a hat called Liftoff by Darien artist Kate Leach. And next to that is a necklace by Westport artist Catherine Ross, who's here with us this afternoon. Catherine, tell us about this piece.
Thank you. This necklace is created by the gifts of my grandmother and my mother. My grandmother had given me this stack of leather-bound books that she had read as a teenager, and I cherish this gift, but they were getting very worn and broken down, and I knew they needed to be repurposed. So when I heard about this project, I knew just what to do. I took the pages of one of the books and the cover and created these beads using the art of quilling that was taught to me by my mother when I was a teenager. The end.
Next up is Weston artist Fruma Markowitz, who worked with yellow pages to make this choker and the 3-strand necklace and cuffs. And next, on the corner, are brooches by Molly Keller. And then next up is a terrific manga headdress by Westport artist Liz Liggett, who's also with us this afternoon.
This work was inspired because I was invited to go through a big bin of books in the library, and I was attracted to a pile of manga books there. It relates to, I think, my children, 2 boys that are 9 and 7 right now, and also to my old work where I used to look at superheroes and redraw and sort of recreate traditional superhero type forms and characters. And in looking at the manga work, I think something that's of common knowledge is that it's definitely interesting the way that young people, particularly girls, are sexualized. And so what I was inspired to do in working with paper and this collage type material, which is very out of my element, seeing as I'm an abstract painter, was to kind of create a helmet.
And next is a rolled paper bead necklace and earring set by Westport artist Cindy Zuckerbrod. And painter Wendy Piper just came in. Wendy, tell us about this wonderful dress. What's its title, first of all?
My piece is titled, Does This Make My Hips Look Big? And I went for a real retro feel, and I wanted to create a feminine silhouette. So I started with sewing pages of cookbook and diet book together, but once I started to manipulate it, they started to tear. So I created a heavy paper form and then I just applied all the pages to it and embellished, and here we are. Ta-da!
Okay. On this side of the room, at the front of the table, are 2 of 6 vintage book purses in the exhibit by Kathleen Scranton of Coventry, Connecticut. And next are 2 beautifully beaded necklaces by fiber artist Susan Gualiumi of Northford, who combined rolled beads made from book pages with other beads in her stash. Next door to that are a series of necklaces by Westport artist Sharon Cooper, and she calls them aptly novel necklaces. All are made from text from novels. And on the corner of the table is a fascinator hat by Norwalk artist Jane Lubin. And behind her, and behind the hat and the windowsill, are more pieces by Jane Lubin. And she is actually here to talk with us.
So I started with altered books as a result of thinking that the physical book was going to go the way of the dinosaur, because people were turning to digital formats. So as an artist, I looked at a book and saw raw material. And at first I just started altering pages in the book so that you could just read the book like you would any other book, and took each page and did different kinds of art on it. But then I decided, well, why don't we go a little further, and made some sculptural books. You still see that this is obviously a book, but it's a piece of sculpture. And then when this exhibit came up, I thought about the British love of crazy hats, and so I tried to make hats that were like the British, but using the printed page as the design element. So you could say I took it down a notch. They're very low-key compared to what the British would do. And going further with the accessories, I thought about gloves, but when I looked at the gloves that I made, I saw this arboreal shape. And so I'm really taking this idea of wearable books and going back to sculptural.
In the corner is a beautifully pleated skirt and a ready-made jacket trimmed with cutouts from the same book on flowers by freelance theatrical costumer Delaurie Johnston of Stamford. And in the front window is a stunning corset and petticoat, also made by Delaurie, who was one of a small army of people who worked on the costumes for Hamilton on Broadway. And she's here to tell us about this piece.
I found a book of nursery rhymes and songs from Holland. And it's a beautiful 1920s book for children, and I fell in love with it. And it made me want to make things out of it, and I realized the amount of love I had for it meant that it was very hard to cut up. But we did it, and we made a corset and skirt out of the illustrations and some of the text.
On the top shelf are sunglasses and a case made for them from the book that West Harrison, New York artist Pascaline Rochier Gardner used for the glasses. And on the bottom shelf is an altered stack of books by Westport artist Jane Arejo. On this shelf are paper glasses made by Westport artist Rebecca Ross. On this side of the hallway is a really lovely woven purse by White Plains, New York fiber artist Kate Perry. The first piece in the hallway is a charming child's dress by Westport artist and vintage children's book collector Elizabeth Duvall. The next piece up is a beautiful printed shawl and dress from a 2D design by Stamford multimedia artist Mari Giorgi. Here's the shawl opened up. In this section of the hallway is a really sweet apron made by Helly Stagg of Bridgeport, and she crumpled and uncrumpled the paper a lot so that it would have the feel of fabric. Okay. Next to Helly is our book buttons made by really simple but effective folding technique by Jay Baker, who's a Westport artist. Here, what were book buttons on the coat have now become flowers in this potted plant. And this is a really extraordinary dress and headdress by Westport artist Susie Mastropietro, made of folded rolled beads from book pages and other book pages that unfurl into a train on the back.
So I used gardening books for this piece, and sadly for my yard, I never opened them. So I made beads for the bodice, and I made about 2,500 beads. They're all made from long triangles of paper, and they're hand rolled. And then I created a loom on a trifold board using hemp twine, and I beaded everything. I even tapered areas to create a shape to follow the feminine form. And so what I wanted to achieve with this was to take the challenge of working with a rigid material like paper, which can be a little bit unforgiving, and make an association with the subject of plants and something organic, and also combining that with the female form.
On the table in the back room is a necklace called Faces from the Louvre that White Plains artist Kate Perry made from a book on the Louvre Museum. In the back are a series of hats. The first one by me, from a book on learning to play the harmonica. The second one in the center is by Anita Ganji-Balkan of West Hartford, and it's a steampunk-inspired hat. And the last hat is by Jane Lubin. And there's an additional purse here beside Jane's hat by Jay Baker of Westport. And in this corner is a coat that's almost entirely machine sewn that I made. The top shelf holds an altered book by Darien artist Kate Leach, and on the middle shelf is a really lovely altered book called Fairy House that Darien artist Meg Tweedy created. And the last piece in the show is this wonderful 20s flapper dress by Delore Johnston, who created it from cartoons from the New Yorker Book of Literary Cartoons by longtime cartoon editor Bob Mankoff. And I want to thank all of the artists in the show for creating special pieces for this exhibit. We're indebted to them, and I want to thank you as well for coming on the tour of this show with us. Hope you enjoyed it.